dictates the existence of the recipient of devotional service and the devotee who renders devotional service. Brahma Siddhi, through devotional service, is realization of the Supreme Personality of God. The understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme Godhead is not the perfect stage of Brahma Siddhi or Brahma realization, nor is the realization of the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Person perfect for Bhagavan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Akil Atma. He is the super soul, one who resides, one who realizes the Supreme Personality, realizes the other features, namely the Paramatma feature and the Brahman feature, and that total realization is Brahma Siddhi. Okay. So this verse today is Canto 3, chapter 25, verse number 17.
19.
What's that?
19.
19?
Yes.
Did I just read? Did I read 19?
Yeah. You just.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so perfection and self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For that is the only auspicious path. Okay, well, it's pretty straightforward. In other words, if we want to attain perfection in self-realization, we have to engage in devotional service. It's not that this is saying, that all roads lead to Rome. Well, that's not really true. It's not that all yoga practices lead to pure devotional service. It's not true. Uh, it's only unalloyed devotional service to Krishna with love and devotion. So that's why in this verse it says perfection and self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. This one time there was a person who was meditating. At the same time, he had a cigarette, a lighted cigarette in his between his index finger and middle finger, right? So I was a little bit surprised. He was in the position of a lotus position, and so-called meditating. He had a lighted cigarette also. So I said, "Excuse me, can I ask you a question?" So he had his eyes; they were actually closed, right? And he didn't say anything. Just said, "Excuse me, sir. Uh, why do you have a cigarette in your fingers?" And then he said, "Get away from me." I said, "I just wanted to ask you this question." He said, "Go away." I said, "Sir, you're supposed to be meditating, but why are you holding a lighted cigarette in your fingers?" Then he opened his eyes a little bit. He says, "Just see, you Hare Krishna, you don't understand anything." So I said, "Well, just answer why do you have a cigarette in your hand?" He said, "Just go away. You have no understanding of what it means to meditate." So he was crazy, right? But he, uh, he was convinced that the Hare Krishnas are nonsense people, his yoga practice with a lighted cigarette in his hands and sitting down in a lotus position was something that I guess he thought was bona fide. So there are crazy people like this in the world, and they do these type of crazy things, meditating with a cigarette in their hands, lighted cigarette. It was not, an unlighted cigarette. That means that every once in a while they were going to smoke also. So that's not meditation. That's called the Boga Yoga. There's a uh, there's a what you would call uh, Krishna conscious and yoga, and there's Boga Yoga, bogus yoga. Okay, so in this verse today, verse 19, chapter 3, canto 3, chapter 25, verse 19, it says, perfection and self realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. Well, obviously, this person who was smoking a cigarette and at the same time meditating, that's not what you would call perfection and self realization. And it's not yoga either, it's called boga. So, so it's a complete travesty of yoga. Yoga means connecting to Krishna. You don't connect to Krishna through smoking cigarettes. There's once this person I was talking to, and I said, "Well, what's your goal in life?" He said, "Oh, my goal in life, I want to become rich." I said, "Oh." I said, "What are you doing to become rich?" He said, "I'm smoking marijuana." I said, "Do you think you can become rich by smoking marijuana?" "Oh, yes," he said. "Oh, yes, definitely." I said, "Well, what makes you believe that you'll become rich by smoking marijuana?" He said, "Well, three-quarters of the people that work uh, in uh, in IT smoke marijuana." I said, "I don't really think three-quarters of the people that work in IT smoke marijuana. Uh, they don't have time to smoke marijuana. They're so busy trying to, have a career that smoking marijuana is not the way to do it." Uh, so I said, you do better to stop smoking marijuana and start to control your mind and senses and focus on Krishna. He said, "Oh, you Hare Krishnas, you're all the same. You're always trying to bring people down." I said, "Well, we're not trying to bring you down. We're trying to give you the truth. You don't make spiritual advancement by meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. Smoking is intoxication. It's not a way to become spiritually, let's say, bona fide." He said, "Okay, just go away now. Don't bother me. You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, okay, yes, sorry." Uh, but anyway, chant Hare Krishna. He said, "Go away." He was really upset. Why? Because he was not able to hear what you would call uh, bona fide things. He's a speculator. He's making his own way. There's no such thing as your own way. You have to follow Krishna's way. So there are too many people in this world that are trying to do things in their own way. The best way is to follow the Vaishnava acharyas. That's the best way. Your own way is going to be speculative way, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes. such as thinking you're going to make spiritual advancement by smoking cigarettes. It's not a fact. If anything, you'll get sick by smoking cigarettes. You're not going to go back to Godhead by smoking. Okay, so here it says perfection in self realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. Okay, so that's a very clear statement. What is the auspicious path? It's the path of Krishna consciousness, of following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, not simply to follow the rules and regulations, but to attain genuine love and devotion for the Lord. We shouldn't be acting in a perfunctory way. Look that word up, perfunctory. We should act in a genuine way. There's a big difference between, mechanically acting and sincerely acting in devotional service. Someone who's acting in a perfunctory way, they make the motions of being engaged in maybe Krishna consciousness, but they're not seriously attaining the love of God. They're just mechanically chanting, and but at the same time they're chanting, they're meditating on many other things also. So chanting Hare Krishna is to help us meditate uniquely on Krishna. That's why silent chanting is not recommended. It should be we should chant out loud. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you chant silently, there's no way that people know if you're actually chanting or not because you're silent. So when Prabhupada was present, he didn't do any silent chanting, right? He didn't give the example. Well, this is the way to chant. That's not the way to chant. You have to chant, out loud. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. If you go to a Mayavadi, let's say, program, people are engaged, and most people are engaged in silent meditation. I don't know. You ever experience that? Yeah. And then, you can't silently meditate your whole life. So eventually they break their so-called meditation and they start talking and so forth. There are some people who do mona ruts, that is to not talk at all. But that's because when they talk nonsense. So to avoid that, they take a vow of mona vrata. But uh, devotees don't do things like that. And you don't have to do things like that if you speak about Krishna. If you speak nonsense, okay, it's better to not say anything at all. But this, in other words, the life of a devotee is to glorify Krishna and surrender to the Lord. When you surrender to the Lord, then you can chant Hare Krishna every day. You can speak about Krishna every day. You can think about Krishna. You can serve Krishna. That's the life of a devotee. The life of materialists, they're thinking about sense gratification. They're engaging in sense gratification. They're glorifying sense gratification, and they're meditating on sense gratification. So that's a type of, well, it's not yoga, it's called boga. Yoga is when you're completely focusing on Krishna, and Boga is that you have no control at all of your mind, and it's going all over the place. And therefore, people unnecessarily waste their time, and they don't make any tangible spiritual advancement. How can you tell if someone's making spiritual advancement? Number one, they don't associate with nonsense people. And number two, they always chant Hare Krishna and talk about Krishna. And number three, they enjoy having Mahaprasadam and associating with genuine devotees who follow the regulative principles. So in this way, you can recognize who's a devotee, who's not a devotee. Just like in school, there are some people in school who are devotees. But there are a lot of people in school that are not devotees. Uh, because it's a rare thing to find a devotee who's completely dedicated to serving Krishna. It's actually a rare thing. It's not a normal, it's not a question of normal. It's rarely experienced. Most people are studying because they want to have a good career and make money and and enjoy material life. Uh, so therefore, they might be very good at studies. They might get A's in all their courses, but their actual purpose is to be a high achiever, make a lot of money, and be so-called successful materially. Now, this brings up an important point. What is actually success? We should think about that. What is it that makes someone successful in life? Some people would say, well, you have to be, if you're successful, you're rich, and you get, high scores in all your endeavors, and you end up with a lot of material, let's say, benefits. You become rich, you become famous, and so forth. That is not a success. That's why the what does it mean to become successful should be discussed. Uh, Most people would talk about material success, but real success is spiritual success, where you can actually think of Krishna 24 hours a day. And Prabhupada says one should organize their uh, day in such a way that they can think of Krishna 24 hours. Right? So that is success because we don't know when we're going to die. But if you train to always think of Krishna, then it'll be easy to remember Krishna at the moment of death. If for some reason you're not able to think of Krishna at the moment of death, but because you've been always chanting Krishna's names and following the principles, and Krishna liberates you anyway. So therefore, Krishna is not a mean person. He wants to see everybody go back to Godhead. And if someone is chanting Hare Krishna, uh, but maybe for some reason at the moment of death they're not chanting or they're not remembering Krishna, Krishna liberates them anyway because they've spent a lot of time in their life chanting and worshiping the Lord. Sometimes people get so sick they can't even speak, and it's difficult for them because they have some severe type of sickness. But Krishna never, I mean, he never ignores his devotee. He's always the friend of the devotees, and he'll do everything to help the devotee come back to Godhead. Okay, so perfection and self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. So if he only does gymnastic yoga, there's no such thing as gymnastic yoga, but in other words, he's doing yoga to improve his health, or he's doing yoga to get the attention of people, or this or that. That's not going to help him uh, attain perfection of self-realization. Self-realization can only happen when one gives up all desire for sense gratification. But that's not enough. They have to also actively be engaged in devotional service. Then you can make spiritual advancement. Simply meditating silently is not the way to become spiritually advanced. It's you have to We have to be actively engaged in devotional service without any material desire, but simply to please Krishna. Then we become successful as a meditator because our meditation is basically chanting Hare Krishna. So when the Mayavadi meditates, they stay silent. When a devotee meditates, he chants Hare Krishna. And he meditates on the name of the Lord. And the way to meditate on the name of the Lord is when you chant loud enough that you can hear and someone near you can hear also the holy names. So that makes a closed circuit. You're chanting with your lips and your tongue, and then it goes like this all the way around right to your ears. And then if anyone else is not too far away from you, they can also hear. That is chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Silent chanting is not recommended at all. There are a lot of devotees that silently chant. Have you been with? Yeah.
In our temple as well.
Yeah, in our temple as well. It's shocking. I don't understand where they learned that. It's well, let's put it like, I mean, it's a type of selfishness, right? Because when you chant loud enough that people can hear it also, that means you are a benevolent person, someone who's trying to meditate on the name of the Lord and at the same time helping others also meditate on the Lord. If you chant silently, that means I don't know, you're selfish because you can't even hear and nobody else can hear either, right? Okay, and you don't really know if they're chanting Hare Krishna because there's being silent. Okay, all right. So Prabhupada says, we'll go over this purport more deeply, that knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service. No, in other words, unless you engage in devotional service, the perfection and self-realization cannot be attained. Unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious way. Okay, now some people will say, oh, well, this is something that's dogmatic. It doesn't mean it's a dog. Dogmatic means that a person only sees in their own way and they're not liberal. Look up the word dogmatic. It has nothing to do with the dog. What does it say?
Inclined to lay down principles as incontrovertibly true.
In other words, you can't change. Incontrovertibly true means there's no other way. One way.
To be dogmatic is to follow a set of rules no matter what.
Right. So it's usually a negative thing in modern English. If you're dogmatic, it's like, you're just a one-track person.
Close-minded.
Huh?
Close-mindedness.
It's considered closed-mindedness, yes. But we are dogmatic in a positive way. We only want to hear and talk about Krishna. We don't want to hear nonsense, and we don't want to talk nonsense. So someone could say, "Oh, you guys are all dogmatic." Right? So, yeah, if we're always talking nonsense, yes, we are dogmatic. But if we're talking about Krishna, we're not dogmatic. It has nothing to do with a dog, right? It has to do with being Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada has written, he said, the devotee should organize his life so that he can think of Krishna 24 hours a day. Now, if someone says, oh, that's dogmatic, that's because they don't understand anything about Krishna consciousness. And by the way, if your mind is always thinking about many different things, let's say during the 24 hours, number one, you're sleeping maybe 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours. So that means that those periods are when you are not conscious, right? So then the hours that you are conscious, if you're talking about nonsense things all the time, then where is the ability to meditate on Krishna or to be Krishna conscious, right? So the devotees, when they go to sleep, they are planning to wake up in 6 hours or 7 hours, and then they start chanting Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the whole idea is, you need some sleep. If you don't have any sleep at all, you won't be able to focus very well. You become tired, you become dull, and so forth. So the mind has to have some rest, right? And but if you are engaging in too much sleep, and Prabhupada always talked about 6 or 7 hours. That's it. Shouldn't sleep more than that. But some people, they sleep, 10, 12 hours. And they have these sleep-ins where they don't want to get out of bed even, until maybe 12 o'clock in the afternoon or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And they think that's success because they got some extra sleep. Actually, everything has a right way and a wrong way. So Prabhupada said 6 hours, okay, maybe 7 hours, but not more than that. Right? And he used to take a nap in the afternoon also. So let's say you sleep 5 hours or 6 hours, and you take one hour nap in the afternoon. That's what he would do, right? Of course, he wasn't really sleeping 6 hours at night. He was sleeping maybe 3 or 4 hours, and then he would take a nap also in the afternoon, maybe an hour or two. Of course, that's Srila Prabhupada. Okay, but for devotees, he recommended 6 hours or maybe 7 hours sleep a day, and maybe 1 hour in the afternoon for some people. Okay, so that knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service is explicitly explained here. Okay. Explicitly means in a very not professional, but a very perfect way. And what is the verse? Perfection and self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For that is the only auspicious path. So there are auspicious paths and inauspicious paths. So an auspicious path is recommended by the acharyas. Auspicious means the best or most, uh, uh, best way. Let's put it like that: the best way, or the most um, perfect way for making spiritual advancement. Then it's auspicious. Auspicious means it's very, very good. Okay, so when it says, for that is the only auspicious path, that means there are many paths in life. But the most auspicious path is to engage in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. Now, some people, they meditate and or they perform austerities for peace, right? Let's say there's war going on, and then they meditate so that the war can stop. No war has ever stopped because people meditated. And by the way, there's always going to be war, unfortunately, but that's life. There's always going to be some war going on. The United Nations was formed. First, before the United Nations, they had the League of Nations. That was a failure. Then they started the United Nations. That's also a failure. Prabhupada said the United Nations is a failure because they're just increasing the number of flags. And he said, eventually every house will have its own flag, its own currency, and its own army, and so forth. I mean, that's how bad things will come in the future. Instead of having one king, there'll be millions of kings. Previously, there was only one king, Yudhisthira, right? And he was king of the whole universe, right? That's real, let's say, organization. And anyone who was not following the principles, they would be punished by Yudhisthira. And he would go around his kingdom and make sure everyone's following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. Right? So that's real, let's say, spiritual leader. But nowadays, you have the United Nations. United Nations. That means everyone's united, right? But actually, they're just in provinces, but they're not united. They're just increasing flags, which means there's more and more disunity. And actually, have wars stopped because there's the United Nations? No, no. Like, for example, Russia is a member of the United Nations, but Russia's in war right now, right? And Ukraine is a member of the United Nations, but still, there's war. So there's many wars going on, even though you have this organization called the United Nations. So they're not united; they're disunited. How can you have a United Nations? That's if everyone becomes Krishna conscious, now they're united. Because if you are Krishna conscious and people are united, they're happy and they support you to be Krishna conscious. But if you're not Krishna then you're not supporting anyone else to be Krishna conscious, then actually you're all disunited. What does that mean? That means that the only way to be actually united is everyone has a Krishna conscious life. Then they're united. So, in one sense, Krishna consciousness is the United Nations because you have people from all different countries and all different languages. They're all Krishna conscious. So they're united, So you have Russian devotees, you have Chinese devotees, you have American devotees, and they all come together, in festival days. And even though they can't speak the same language, but they're united because they're all chanting Hare Krishna. So that's the way you can have united nations.
And Maharaj, we feel the unity as well, like within the heart as well.
Yeah.
We feel like even though not too many discussion is going on, but just by chanting and all the devotional service activities,
Yeah.
we feel connected.
Yeah. You have, people go to India for festival times, right? And you'll see it. Some people are speaking Chinese, some people are speaking Russian, some people are speaking English and so forth. But they're all united when they chant Hare Krishna. So one might chant Hare Krishna with a Chinese accent. Another person might chant Hare Krishna with an American accent. Another one might chant Hare Krishna with a Russian accent. But they're all chanting Hare Krishna. So they're united. But it's not that one is one person is chanting Hare Krishna and another person is chanting Hallelujah. Now they're not united. It's disunited. Right? But they're all trying to chant Hare Krishna. That means they're all united. United to please the Lord. Okay, so that knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service is explicitly explained here. So this word explicitly means specifically just this one way, or explicitly means very clearly enunciated. It's not many different what you would call different opinions. It's explicitly explained here, so you cannot make a mistake, right? So unless joined by devotional service, no, it says that knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service is explicitly explained here. So in the sense, explicitly means very clearly. You can't make a mistake. Right? Look that word up, explicitly. Should say.
Expressing something clearly, directly, without leaving any room for confusion, doubt, or interpretation.
Here it is. Say. You can't. It's so clear that you can't make a false, let's say, interpretation of it. It's very explicit. Okay. So then Prabhupada says, na yujya manaya means without being dovetailed. When there is devotional service, then the question is whether to offer.
Where?
No, wait a minute. What is that? It's text 19, right?
Yeah, same thing. Question is where to off.
What's that?
Just the word you read, the whether, but it's
Na yuja manaya means without being dovetailed. In other words, without being connected to Krishna. When there is devotional service, then the question is whether to offer
Where to offer?
I'm sorry, where to offer that service. Devotional service is to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul of everything, for that is the only reliable path of self-realization or Brahman realization. Brahman means the truth, right? The word Brahma Siddhaye means to understand oneself to be different from matter, to understand oneself to be Brahman, which means spiritual. The Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. I am a spiritual person. In other words, what is a spiritual person? Someone who is engaged in unalloyed devotional service. Now, the word unalloyed is an interesting word. An alloy is something that is a mixture of metals. Unalloyed is something pure like gold. It's not mixed with anything else. Okay. So this word unalloyed is used usually in metallurgy, right? But it also has use in other ways. So when something is unalloyed, it means there's one way, there's no other way, and it's pure. So unalloyed devotion means it's devotional service performed without any other purpose other than to please the Lord and spiritual master also. So that's what unalloyed devotional service is. You cannot be engaged in unalloyed devotional service if your mind is wavering, if you are sometimes chanting Hare Krishna and sometimes not chanting Hare Krishna and so forth. Unalloyed means you're always staying on the direct path of Krishna consciousness without any hiatus. Look that word up, hiatus. Hiatus.
Vacation.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
The temporary break, pause, or interruption in an activity or process or sequence.
Yeah, sometimes people say, "Well, I'm going to take a vacation from Krishna consciousness to rekindle my fervent practice of Krishna consciousness." That's not a way of becoming fervently attached to Krishna consciousness. There's no such thing as a vacation in Krishna consciousness. So, oftentimes some devotees say, "Well, we had a great vacation. We went to Spain, and we spent 3 weeks in Spain. Went to the beach, and we did this, and we did." That's not Krishna conscious. Yeah, okay. I went to Mayapur for the festival. Okay, that's not a vacation. That is what you would call a spiritual uh, uh, a spiritual experience. Yeah. Going to Spain or going to Africa, or going here or there to visit that place is not Krishna conscious. But going to Mayapur to see the deities, to engage in the festivities, Gaur Purnima and so forth. I mean, that's not a vacation. Uh, that would be called a vacation by some people. They say, "Oh, you went to India?" Yes, I did. And did you go to the Taj Mahal? No, I didn't go to the Taj Mahal. Well, what did you do there? Well, I went to Mayapur. Mayapur, what's that? No, it's a holy place where Lord Chaitanya appeared and spread the Hare Krishna Mahamantra all over the world from that place. So there's a question of, going someplace for a vacation. Vacation implies you stop doing what you normally do and you do something that, so forth, that so-called is reinvigorating yourself, right? But that's not really reinvigorating yourself. Like, for example, you have in college, you have the college break, where,
Spring break.
huh?
Spring break.
Spring break, yeah. Well, spring break basically it means that a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of students in college will go to Florida or places like that and they'll engage in intense sense gratification. That's their break. Well, anyway, the break from what? The break from so-called studying, and they get drunk and they smoke marijuana and all that, and that's their break. Yeah, you break your regulated life and become completely unregulated for like a month or a week. Right? And they call that vacation. But the vacation is when you come back and you can relax. It's not a vacation when you have intense sense gratification. You have to go back home to relax.
Vacation from vacation.
Yeah, vacation from nonsense. Yeah. Okay. So the knowledge and renunciation, that knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service, is explicitly explained here. In other words, explicit. It's so clear you can't make a mistake. Na yud means without being dovetailed. When there is devotional service, then the question is where to offer that service. Devotional service is to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul of everything, for that is the only reliable path of self-realization, or Brahman realization. Brahman means spiritual. The word Brahma Siddhaye means to understand oneself to be different from matter, to understand oneself to be Brahman. Brahman means spiritual. The Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi. So Aham means I am, and Brahmasmi means I am a spiritual person. But if you say I am a materialistic person, that's not Brahmasmi. It's a different I am. I am a sense gratifier. Right, gratifier. But when you say Aham Brahmasmi, I am a spiritual person engaged in devotional service. Brahma Siddhi means that one should know that he is not matter. Right. So when you say Aham Brahmasmi, you're saying I am not this body. I am a spirit soul that's completely dedicated to serving Krishna. So this word Aham Brahmasmi is very important. And it can't be misinterpreted. Aham Brahmasmi, Aham means I am, and Brahmasmi, I am a spiritual person following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. So here it says, the Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi, or Brahma Siddhi, means that one should know that he is not matter. He is pure soul. There are different kinds of yogis, but every yogi is supposed to engage in self-realization or Brahman realization. It is clearly stated here that unless one is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, One cannot have easy approach to the path of Brahma Siddhi. So Brahma Siddhi means the perfection in serving the Lord, or Brahma. In the beginning of the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that when one engages himself in the devotional service of Vasudeva, spiritual knowledge, and renunciation of the material world, automatically becomes manifest. Thus, a devotee does not have to try separately for renunciation or knowledge. Devotional service itself is so powerful that by one's service attitude, everything is revealed. It is stated here, Shiva Pankaha, that is the only auspicious path for self-realization. The path of devotional service is the most confidential means for attaining Brahman realization, or realization of Krishna or the truth. That perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service, indicates that the so-called Brahman realization or realization of the Brahma Jyoti effulgence is not Brahma Siddhi. Okay, let's read that again. The perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service, indicates that the so-called Brahman realization or realization of the Brahma Jyoti effulgence is not Brahma Siddhi. Siddhi means perfect. Beyond that Brahma Jyoti, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Upanishads, a devotee prays to the Lord to kindly put aside the effulgence, or the Brahma Jyoti, so that the devotee may see within the Brahma Jyoti the actual eternal form of the Lord. Unless one attains realization of the transcendental form of the Lord, there is no question of bhakti. Bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipient of devotional service. In other words, the person who's receiving the devotional service, and that's Krishna. So bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipient of devotional service and the devotee who renders devotional service. Brahma Siddhi through devotional service is realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Siddhi means perfection, and perfection of Brahma, or of God, basically, or the truth, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through devotional service is realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme Godhead is not the perfect stage of Brahma Siddhi or Brahman realization, nor is the realization of the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Person perfect. For Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Akilatma He. He is the Super Soul. One who realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead realizes the other features, namely the Paramatma feature and the Brahman feature, and that total realization is Brahma Siddhi, the perfection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Brahma means perfection of the spiritual life. Okay, so ultimately, we all have to surrender to Guru and Krishna. Then we can get on the right path of Krishna consciousness and achieve this Brahma Siddhi. Siddhi means perfection, Brahma means the truth, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Brahman realization. Okay, are there any questions? So in this verse, it says Shiva Panta. Let's see where it says that.
The auspicious path.
Yeah. Is that in the verse though? I don't see it.
Yeah, third verse, third line. In the
Oh
line.
yes, Shiva Panta. Yeah. So the only auspicious path. Mhm. Shiva is not referring to Lord Shiva. It's understood here as the auspicious path of Krishna consciousness. Okay. So there's a question, an interesting question here. It says, when there is devotional service, then the question is where to offer that service. Devotional service is to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul of everything. For that is the only reliable path of self-realization or Brahman realization. The word Brahma Siddhaye means to understand oneself to be different from matter, to understand oneself to be Brahman. The Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahma, or I am the spiritual. Yeah. Brahma Siddhi means that one should know that he is not matter. He is pure soul. There are different kinds of yogis, but every yogi is supposed to engage in self-realization or Brahman realization. It is clearly stated here that unless one is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot have easy approach to the path of Brahma Siddhi, or perfection of the absolute truth or personality of Godhead. In the beginning of the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that when one engages himself in the devotional service of Vasudeva, meaning Krishna, spiritual knowledge and renunciation of the material world automatically become manifest. In other words, you don't have to try and be, let's say, renounced. You don't have to try to have to study and become knowledgeable. That knowledge and renunciation naturally develop by engaging in devotional service. That's why it says in the beginning of the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that when one engages himself in the devotional service of Vasudeva, spiritual knowledge and renunciation of the material world automatically become manifest. Thus, a devotee does not have to try separately for renunciation or knowledge. Devotional service itself is so powerful that by one's service attitude, everything is revealed. Everything spiritual is revealed. It is stated here, Shiva Panta. This is the only auspicious path for self-realization. What is that? Devotional service. That perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service, indicates that the so-called Brahman realization or realization of the Brahma Jyoti effulgence is not Brahma Siddhi, or the perfection of Brahma, or the truth. Beyond that Brahma Jyoti, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Brahma Jyoti is the effulgence emanating from the body of Krishna. But beyond that is Krishna himself, the source of that effulgence. In the Upanishads, a devotee prays to the Lord to kindly put aside the effulgence, meaning the Brahma Jyoti, so that the devotee may see within the Brahma Jyoti the actual eternal form of the Lord. Unless one attains realization of the transcendental form of the Lord, there's no question of bhakti or devotion. Bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipient of the devotional service and the devotee. So the recipient is Krishna himself, who renders devotional service. In other words, you pray to Krishna to take away the shroud or the covering of the Brahmajyoti so the devotee can see the beautiful face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mayavadis, they want to merge into the Brahmajyoti. So they're not going to be able to see the transcendental form of Krishna. They're going to be basically blinded by the Brahmajyoti. But the devotees are not interested in being blinded by the Brahmajyoti. They want that blinding aspect of Brahmajyoti to be removed so they can see the smiling face of Krishna. Huh? Yes. What's that?
The Isopanishad 15th verse.
Yes. Hiranmayana Patrena. Yes. Piyatam. So called. Yes. Piyatam will come. Yeah. Okay. So, in the Upanishads, a devotee prays to the Lord to kindly put aside the effulgence, Brahmajyoti, so that the devotee may see within the Brahmajyoti the actual eternal form of the Lord. Unless one attains realization of the transcendental form of the Lord, there is no question of bhakti. Bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipient of devotional service and the devotee who renders devotional service. So, yeah, let's say, well, we've said this before. Let's say you go to a Baha'i temple or you go to a Muslim so-called temple. You don't see Krishna. In fact, you don't see anything. You see four walls, and it's a little bit of a shock for a devotee. You walk into a mosque or you walk into a Baha'i temple, there's nothing. It's just empty. It's just an empty room. Or maybe there's some little thing that you have to face that thing indicates where the direction of Makkah is. But there's no personality at all. Right? In Islam also, you're not allowed to make any form of the Lord. So what do they meditate on? Basically, they meditate on the direction toward Makkah, which is not, well, it's better than meditating on nothing, but there is something, but it's not the personal form of the Lord. And you might ask a Muslim, does God have a form? Most Muslims, well, the ones that are really educated, they say, we don't know. We don't have that information in the Quran. And the nonsense Muslims, they'll say that God doesn't have a form. The educated Muslims say, we don't know. We don't have that information. Quran. Okay, so bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipient of devotional service and the devotee who renders devotional service. And that's in other words, the devotee and the Lord. Brahmasiddhi through devotional service is realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme Godhead is not the perfect stage of Brahmasiddhi or Brahman realization. Nor, see, then that's a very important statement. Brahman realization is understanding the different aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahmajyoti, the Paramatma, and Bhagavan. That's real Brahman realization. It's not just the understanding the Brahma Jyoti. It's understanding the Brahma Jyoti and Paramatma, and then ultimately Bhagavan. You know. That's why it says here, the understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme God is not the perfect stage of Brahma Siddhi or Brahman realization, nor is the realization of Paramatma feature of the Supreme Person perfect for Bhagavan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Akilatma He, is the Supersoul. One who realizes the Supreme Personality realizes the other features, namely Paramatma feature and the Brahman feature, and that total realization is Brahma Siddhi, perfection of Brahman realization, or the absolute truth. Okay, any questions? Yeah, so there's one statement. Thus, a devotee does not have to try separately for renunciation or knowledge. Devotional service itself is so powerful that by one's service attitude, everything is revealed. It is stated here, Shiva Panta. This is the only auspicious path for self-realization. The path of devotional service is the most confidential means for attaining Brahman realization. That perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service, indicates that the so-called Brahman realization or realization of the Brahma Jyoti effulgence is not Brahma Siddhi. Beyond that Brahma Jyoti, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Upanishads, a devotee prays to the Lord to kindly put aside the effulgence of Brahma Jyoti so that the devotee may see within the Brahma Jyoti the actual eternal form of the Lord. Okay, so the verse in the Hiranmayana Patmena Satyasya Pitam Mukam, that verse in the Ishopanishad, where the devotee is praying to the Lord, please remove this curtain of blinding effulgence so I can see your smiling face.
Sustainer of all that live, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure view.
There it is. Haribol. Okay, well, I guess we'll stop on that. And our takeaway today is that perfection in Brahman realization, realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service. Indicates that the so-called Brahman realization or realization of Brahma Jyoti effulgence is not Brahma Siddhi, or the perfection of the absolute truth. Beyond that Brahma Jyoti, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, if we go directly to trying to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that means that we will also understand the Brahma Jyoti, the Paramatma, and ultimately Bhagavan. You know. So that's real Brahman realization. It's not just the Brahma Jyoti. Brahma Jyoti is preliminary stage of realization, but there's a lot more beyond that. So those people who want to merge into the Brahman realization, they are shortchanging themselves. You know what shortchanging means? You know, if you give someone if you if you give someone $100 bill to pay for your groceries, that only costs $60, right? And they don't give you anything back. You've been shortchanged.
Giving someone less than what they're owed.
Yeah. So if you only have Brahman realization, it's less than the absolute truth. The absolute truth is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Haribol, thank you very much. We'll remember this today. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Haribol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama.